Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel War Zone. Today we're diving into a major geopolitical story unfolding right now: the rising tensions between Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus and Vladimir Putin of Russia. In a scenario I'm framing as Lukashenko challenges Putin, the alliance is breaking. It's a dramatic turn in what has long been seen as a tight-knit partnership, and we're going to unpack why this might be happening, what it means, and what might come next. Let's begin. First, a bit of the exterior framing the big picture of what's happening. For decades, Belarus and Russia have maintained what is characterized as the Union State arrangement, a deep political, economic, and military alignment. Analysts note that Belarus turned from a somewhat independent posture after the 2014 annexation of Crimea into a much closer alignment with Russia as pressure mounted at home for President Lukashenko. Belarus has provided Moscow with territory, infrastructure, and support, including allowing Russian military activity on Belarusian soil, but now cracks are showing. Lukashenko has begun to speak in a more independent tone. For example, he announced after a 5-hour meeting with Putin that Russia has a new proposal for Ukraine, which he said Ukraine should accept or face escalation. He has also signaled that Belarus may be seeking a more autonomous role in regional diplomacy and energy. Meanwhile, Russia remains the dominant partner, economically and militarily, from a recent 5-year gas and oil deal between the two states. So the stage is set. An external facade of unity remains, but the patterns underneath may be shifting. Turning now to the interior, that is, what's going on inside Belarus and inside the leadership relationship between Lukashenko and Putin. Internally, Belarus is under heavy strain, politically, economically, and socially. Lukashenko has long relied on Moscow's support to sustain his regime, especially after the contested 2020 election and the protests that followed. At the same time, Lukashenko appears to be exploring new maneuvers, for example, offering Belarus as a venue for peace talks in Ukraine, and indicating a desire to engage with the U.S. in that process. The interior conflict is between the need for Russian backing economically, militarily, and the growing need for Lukashenko to assert Belarusian sovereignty, or at least the appearance of it, to maintain legitimacy at home and freedom abroad. That interior tension is likely the driving engine behind the challenge to Putin we're seeing now. Now let's look at performance, how this break is actually being played out, what signals we're seeing, and how each side is performing their role. From Putin's side, Moscow continues to project strength, emphasizing the strategic importance of Belarus, citing trade turnover of over $50 billion, and pointing to Belarus as a reliable partner. From Lukashenko's side, we see him making public statements that are somewhat diverging from the Kremlin line, urging Ukraine to accept a plan, offering Belarus as the setting for negotiations, and warning that Russia will never agree. To European peacekeepers in Ukraine, a view he articulated, but in a way that positions Belarus as the mediator, not just the satellite. We also see Belarus making energy deals with Russia, while simultaneously talking about building its own nuclear power capacity and supplying electricity to regions of Russia or occupied territories of Ukraine. The performance thus is dual, outwardly loyal but internally hedging, strategic dependence yet signaling independence. Let's move on to safety features. In geopolitical terms, this means the risk mitigation or safeguards each side has built in, and how safe or unsafe the arrangement is right now. For Russia, the safety features include its dominance in the relationship, heavy economic leverage, deep military integration in Belarus, the ability to deploy nuclear weapons or strategic assets via Belarusian territory. For Belarus, safety features include Moscow's backing, which has secured the regime post-2020, plus Belarus's role as a buffer state and logistical hub gives it some leverage. But now the safety net appears frayed. Belarus may be recalibrating its stance and may diversify partnerships, e.g., more diplomatic maneuvering, more autonomy in talks. So from a safety viewpoint, both sides face increased exposure. Russia risks losing control/influence. Belarus risks provoking Russian backlash or dependency, still listless, but visible. Next, the unique selling points of this story, why it matters, what makes it compelling for you as a viewer, and what elements make this scenario distinct. First, this isn't just another power play story, it's about an alliance that has persisted for decades, now showing cracks. That in itself is unique. Seeing a long-standing relationship between authoritarian leaders shows strain. Second, it has global implications, from the war in Ukraine, to NATO's eastern flank, to energy politics, to nuclear weapons sighting. Third, the narrative is dynamic and unfolding. We are literally watching an alliance potentially breaking, which could reshape regional security in Europe. Fourth, it illuminates questions about sovereignty, dependence, leadership legitimacy, and how smaller powers navigate relations with larger patrons. This makes the story rich, multidimensional, and highly relevant. Now, price in geopolitical storytelling. This means what the cost is for each player and for the region. For Belarus, Lukashenko, the price of challenging or recalibrating the alliance with Russia could be enormous. Loss of subsidies, economic harm, military vulnerability, possible Russian coercion. He risks destabilizing his regime or inviting punitive action. For Russia, Putin, the price of losing Belarus as a reliable ally would be strategic. Loss of staging ground for power projection, perceived weakness in the regime, regional perception that Putin's axis is cracking. For the region and the world, the price could be higher instability, escalation in Ukraine, shifts in the energy market, new alignments, and greater risk of confrontation. So the cost is steep for everyone involved. Finally, the conclusion. In summary, the alliance between Belarus and Russia, once seen as a monolithic bloc, is showing signs of strain. Lukashenko is subtly but clearly challenging Putin's dominance, shifting his rhetoric, engaging in alternate diplomacy, positioning Belarus as a more independent actor. Putin remains publicly tight-knit, but the underlying signals suggest that the dynamic is changing. The performance we're watching is one of cautious repositioning, Belarus hedging its bets, Russia holding onto its privileges. The safety nets are fraying. The unique selling point is precisely this unfolding drama of alliance stress. And the price high for both sides and potentially for the region. What happens next could influence the future of the Russia-Belarus relationship, the outcome of the Ukraine war, and the broader Eastern European security architecture. So it's one of the most consequential geopolitical stories today. Stay tuned, because how this plays out could send shockwaves across the world. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for updates, and I'll catch you in the next video.